In a world that is robbing dudes of their dudeness, three normal, everyday, middle-aged dudes are taking a stand for dudes everywhere. Join us as we talk about life as a dude in today's world.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Dudefinity podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things dude. I'm Sterling, and joining me as always, my partner in crime, three-time People Magazine Sexiest Man of the Year, Jordan.
How you doing, everybody?
So today's
Thank you for that.
today's episode, who the f are these guys and why do we care?
They probably don't, but we're going to tell you anyway.
Yeah. So we're going to do our best to describe who we are and why we're dedicated to what we're doing. And Jordan, you want to start?
Yeah, so I'm Jordan. I am from the Northeast originally, live in the Mid-Atlantic region now. Sterling and I have been friends, God, for what feels like a lifetime. I don't know about you guys. If you guys have ever been married, it is an endurance kind of thing, and that's kind of what our friendship has been. But love the guy to death. Seriously, he's my brother from another mother. We just constantly spend time talking about our life as dads and husbands and the state of the world and how important it is to be a father in the household. And as we have these conversations so naturally, we just felt like maybe there's other people who feel the way we do and would be interested in what we have to say. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, as George said, my name's Sterling. I live in the Northeast still. I am a father, and I have a beautiful daughter. And essentially, I feel like we're no longer doing a good job of teaching young men how to be men and what they need to do to be successful in life. And we'll have conversations eventually about what success really is. But in terms of what I'm saying is building a legacy that will last longer than you.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about, Sterl, is just being able to pass on some stuff to the next generation and making sure that, in a world that's designed to, for lack of better words, steal our dudeness, take us out of the head of the household, kind of take some things from us. Just kind of how to stand your ground and be the guy that leads your family and be the guy that is there for everybody and just kind of, I don't know, for lack of better words, be a real dude.
100%. It's an unfortunate turn of events that our current society has told men that being a man is toxic. And I hate toxic masculinity. I think it's the dumbest phrase ever. But because anybody can be toxic, it doesn't have anything to do with your gender. But essentially, the things that make
A
a
few
good
exes
man,
that live up to that, by the way.
yeah, that's fact. The things that make a good man are not toxic. And as Jordan said, leading the household, being willing to be uncomfortable, being determined, and essentially, making sure that the people that are under your purview, that rely on you, are able to do so. There's a great saying I like that stress is mine, happiness is yours, pain is mine, peace is yours, but you are mine. Now, your job as a man is to ensure that your loved ones have everything they need to be happy, healthy, and successful. So that's kind of the
Exactly.
crux of it.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that we point out a couple of things real quick too. Yes, we're going to talk about our lives as dads and as dudes in today's society, but we're also going to spend some time talking about current events and kind of every once in a while we'll briefly touch on some political things that are going on in the political arena. We're also going to talk about sports. Sterling and I are diehard Boston Celtics fans. We tend to spend a lot of time talking about that. Can kind of dive off the deep end a little bit. Don't know if you noticed, but Sterling, you probably can't see this, but Sterling's 6'4". He did play a little bit of basketball in his day. Um,
Hmm.
I am 6'2", no basketball skill. But hey, I was Sterling's practicing teammate growing up. So
That's
this is gonna
true.
be it's gonna be a wide ranging podcast that we just feel like you'll get some joy out of, honestly, and maybe some ideas, and feel like you're not alone.
Yeah, it's tough when you see things in the world and there doesn't seem to be anybody who you feel like it is willing to express the same views as you, or willing to express a different view in a way that is conducive to having a conversation as opposed to having an argument. Jordan and I
I
don't
think that's
agree
it.
on everything. Yeah,
Not at all.
we
Not
don't
even
agree
close.
on everything, but we're able to do that and have been friends for, I think it's like 30 years now.
Yeah. And
I'm
that's
pretty
just
sure.
it, being able, like, not only to have a conversation and kind of teach some civility in conversation, and teaching, how to disagree without it turning into an argument, is one part of it. But the other part of it is Sterling and I challenge each other's thinking all the time. We kind of push each other to think about it maybe in a different way. And one of the things that I think that society as a whole has lost completely is empathy, and the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and think about things from their
Mhm,
perspective. There's some things that I have a very hard time doing that with, full transparency. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about just trying to be a little bit better of a person in conversation, to
mhm.
and be a little bit bigger of a person to be able to have conversations. That's the sign of maturity. I mean, really, it is. Being able to ha- hear something you don't like and maybe challenge their idea without getting mad and blowing up and walking away. Trust me, Sterling and I have
Yeah.
gotten mad at each other over the years. 30 years of friendship doesn't come without a few dust ups along the way. But I mean, you
Mhm,
grow through that stuff, and it just makes you stronger. It makes you more aware, of your surroundings and who's with you. So I think the benefit that we really have here is that in this world right now, I think a lot of dudes feel this way. I think they feel unheard. I think they feel a little lost. They they feel like, I mean, for example, and this is just one thing, you go back to the 80s in the sitcom world, the dad is
mhm,
a buffoon, he's an
mhm.
idiot. He's looked at as a
Yeah.
complete idiot, doesn't know anything, can't do anything. And then you see it in households all the time where, the dad's the laughing stock, but yet the dad's the one that's breaking his back to make sure his family has everything, is out there grinding. And moms do a great job, not to take anything away, but there's a lot on dad's shoulders too.
Yeah. And I think as far as it goes, talking about civil discourse
Yeah,
between people who don't agree. I think one of the manliest things that you can do is be in control of your emotions. Doesn't mean not being emotional, you
no,
know, but it means your emotions are real, but they don't control your actions or how you conduct yourself. I can get mad at something, but that doesn't mean that I have to show that outwardly. That doesn't mean I need to blow up or yell or scream. Okay, well, this has made me mad. How am I going to deal with that? And I don't think we teach, especially young men, um, the difference between recognizing your emotions and being in control of them and being emotional. And those are, frankly, you know, and I don't think being letting your emotions control your actions, especially as a man, is not a good thing.
yeah,
You know,
no,
you Yeah, you need to be centered, you need to be a rock. You need to do that for your family, you need to do that for yourself,
yeah.
because that doesn't
Well,
translate well to the workplace or advancing your situation in life.
so do you think, because where I go with this, and when we talk about this subject, a lot of times I go to, yes, we have to be able, I think a key catalyst to being able to control your emotions and to stay balanced is to also be able to talk about your emotions. And I think that's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
thing that
absolutely.
gets lost a lot of times, is that, we're just not supposed to say anything, or we feel like we're not supposed to, or we're not supposed to be,
Mhm,
and I don't think that that is, I think that's a farce. I think that, it leads to more blowups and dust ups, and
mhm,
depression, quite frankly, and internalization of feelings. So I think one of the most important things to understand is you can't have that ability without also being able to discuss those things. It's kind of like
Yeah.
disciplining your child.
Hmm.
You discipline your child, but in that moment you tell them no for that situation, but then you have the conversation of here's why, and it's a more rational, and so behind every emotion is an internal feeling that leads you to act that way, and so I think being able to recognize those and talk about them is going to help you.
Yeah. I do think that there's a difference between um, talking about your feelings. Well, I think what's the important takeaway from that is who you talk about those feelings with.
Exactly.
It's fine to have that conversation with your partner sometimes, but at the end of the day, you know, you have a job to do. Whether
Yeah.
it's in your home or at your place of work, you have a job to do. Nothing can get in the way of that job. But I think it's really important that young men have deep, long-standing connections with other men, you know, somebody that you can call day or
Yeah.
night that will help you bury the body. You
Your
know,
battle buddy.
if you
Your
your
battle
battle
buddy.
buddy, you have to have somebody in your life like that because here's the thing, you know, Jordan, you could call me 400 times in a week and it wouldn't
Yeah.
bother me in the slightest if you were going through something, you know.
Yeah.
That is there's a big difference between that and doing that to your wife or girlfriend.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you got to be aware of that. But
Well, and I
and
think a
the
key piece in that, and like in our relationship too, a key piece is accountability. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you know, um,
I was just
you
about to
you
say
not
that.
only need that, you need that accountability piece. Like, if I'm starting to go off the rails, I fully trust that Sterling's going to recognize it and tell me. Just like I know he knows that I'm going to tell him, yo, bro, that's a little crazy. Let's not do that. Or kind of check each other once in a while. But I mean, that isn't something that you meet a friend and within a month is developed. That is
Mhm.
that is where those lifelong friendships really come into play, I think. And I think that's the other thing. In a world that's designed to kind of steal our attention from each other,
Yeah, absolutely.
by these things, I think it's kind of as part of the human condition, it's kind of not eliminated fully, but I mean, think about how many times you've been sitting in a room and you look
Mhm.
around and it's all people our age and they're just got their phones in their face
Phone
and they're
out,
not even connecting with each
scrolling.
other,
Yeah.
man. Like my favorite thing to do in the world is to talk on the phone to you and Isaac and my dad because it's a time where we're actually
Mhm.
having a conversation. You think about where this idea came from and what we're doing right now. It's from those countless hours we spent on the phone having a conversation, not distracted, and
Mhm.
how many times have we gone, "Oh, we talked for an hour." Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so, but that's what we're trying to get across to you guys is that's the type of relationship and friendship that is going to help support other men, and you need that in your life. And Sterling knows I basically in 21 moved into a retirement community. There's a
Mhm.
retired person in every house, but these dudes that live out here, they're guys who have already gone through the next stages of my life, and so,
Mhm.
you know, Sterling says I have hustle. I'm inherently lazy. I don't know where he gets that I have hustle. So I always try to find the work smarter, not harder route in everything. And I try to, kind of find the path of least resistance, and I'm not one to reinvent the wheel on anything. And so I think, that's another reason why this has kind of come about is because we got to learn from each other, guys. I mean, really, like we can learn a lot from each other just from, where people are in life and the conversations that we have. But if we're not talking, there's no learning. And so, it,
100%. Yeah.
and I feel like that's the key, is communication. And, this podcast is a good outlet of that. We'll have different guests on here from time to time. Um, you know, one day we'll explain to you about our Russian friend that lives in Texas. Seems very odd, but it's the God's honest truth. And he's incredible. We've known him for years. And, but he's got a different perspective on life than even Sterling and I.
Mhm.
Or we'll talk about, we'll have people on here. One of the guys from the neighborhood, he's great with finances. He's retired and all he does is trade stocks and he's got great ideas. But what we want to create is we want to create something that dudes can go to it and take something away that's going to help them on a daily basis. But also, you're going to find Sterling and I are pretty funny, and we're gonna have a good time, like, laughing and cutting up, and you're gonna have to edit that one, sorry. We're pretty funny, though, and we have a good time, like, laughing and cutting up together, and,
Yeah.
I think you'll find that it you know, one of my favorite quotes in life comes from, of all places, the movie Van Wilder. If you haven't seen it, I'm gonna put a plug in. Ryan Reynolds is one of the greatest actors ever, and I think this movie made him that. Um, but the
Hmm.
reason why I'm putting this out there is because, yes, like, don't take life so serious. We're not all gonna make it out alive, man. Like, so, have some fun along the way, but be serious, have your hustle, do the stuff you gotta
Hmm.
do, and learn from it. Anyway, I'm going off the rails.
I'm just letting you cook, man.
I know, I know.
Uh,
So far, there's been some good stuff. I mean, it ain't all bad, I
yeah,
can promise you that.
yeah, no. I'm gonna need you to calm down with the chapstick there, Buffalo Bob.
I
Uh,
know. My lips are like, it changed. The weather changed, dude, and it's so bad. It's so bad.
so yeah, I guess that's kind of us in a nutshell and what we're trying to do with this podcast. But it's and like George said, we're gonna be doing some political stuff. If for no other reason than I think it's important to get the perspective of that from of what other men may be thinking about it. We do a fantastic job of supporting our ladies, and that is awesome. I love everything about that. But we've in doing so, in lifting women up, we've kind of pushed some men down.
Yeah.
And I'm greatly concerned about that, and I know Jordan is too, and hopefully we can steer some folks in a better direction. Uh, all right. Well, so
One of the things too, just kind of to piggyback off what Sterling just said is, yes, we're going to talk about some political stuff, but I want you guys to understand
Mhm.
that have shaped that. But I think the most important thing to realize is it's okay to grow and it's okay to
Mhm.
change. And where you really become lost in translation, so to speak, is when you're so stubborn about your belief that you're unwilling to move. Bless you. I'm gonna need you
Oh,
to
thank
stop
you.
sneezing, dude.
Right.
Allergic to huh? No.
Yeah. Well, but you bring up a good point. I think we kind of poo poo on people when they flip flop, so to speak. But sometimes you just get new information, and when you incorporate that new information into your view of the world, sometimes it changes your opinion.
And sometimes that information is from our own experiences. Just,
Hmm.
where we are in today's world. I wasn't a married father in middle age, 15 years ago. I had very different views on life, and now my views have changed a lot. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, there's common ground in everything, and I think we can. I think if we work to find that, you'll find that there's going to be a lot more civility in the world. But we're not here to fix the world's problems. Honestly, we're here to give you a little bit of a roadmap on how to be a dude, and we're here to kind of maybe encourage some people, have a little fun along the way. You might even see us drink a bourbon or two along the way in one of these podcasts. I mean, it's not
Might.
uncommon to have a bourbon night. So we're just everyday average Joes, man. That's just trying to leave a little bit of a legacy, but also that legacy is our family, and
Hmm.
making sure that that family is protected more than anything else, and that we just kind of made the world a better place. So,
So, speaking of political stuff, I feel like we
oh my God.
probably ought to discuss the elephant in the room. Uh, New York.
Wow. Wow. I don't want to alienate anybody when I say this. I'm certainly not trying to be very harsh, but I'm very, as an American who sat in a room and can tell you exactly where I was on 9/11. I have an
Hmm.
extremely hard time with what just happened in New York. I have an extremely hard time with how to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels a little bit of a slap in the face of the families and the people who lost people on that day, by electing somebody who has openly sympathized with the fact that we and has said that we deserved 9/11 because of what we had done around the world and some other things, you know. So, Mamdani might be a great person. He might have some great ideas. He might be able to do some great things. I cannot. I am one that believes that if you forget history, it repeats itself, and I'm a little concerned
Mhm.
about us forgetting our history a little bit right there and how quickly we forgot it.
I, uh, I'm gonna look at this from another perspective. I'm not a fan of I in terms of a slap in the face to folks who are lost or affected negatively by 9/11. I hadn't considered uh, that angle. I'm more concerned about anybody who believes that government is the solution to all problems. It's the solution to some,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't for a second believe that you're going to solve income inequality and housing inequality in New York through essentially a socialist setup. And he's an admitted socialist, and socialism just doesn't work.
No.
You can have socialist leanings, you can have social programs. I
You have universal programs. It just doesn't work in trickle down economics. It just doesn't work that way.
I worry that my big concern is that the people that and I'm going to generally speaking, I wouldn't, but in this case, for argument's sake, I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt that he isn't, he is not being disingenuous or being a bad actor. Um, I think if you figure those folks that are paying, the vast majority of taxes in New York are paying federal, state, and city taxes, which is wild, and they're going to have very little reason to remain there. Um, I know there's been a boom in housing purchases uh, in suburbs of New York. I think there's going to be a lot of capital flight to Florida. I think
I think
Governor
Arkansas
Abbott
is going to
and
inherit a lot of this. Arkansas is going
Arkansas,
to inherit a lot
Tennessee.
of it right now. That corridor from Nashville to Little Rock is one of the
Mhm.
fastest growing corridors in the country. You're getting a lot of tech hubs coming that way. I think you're going to see a mass exodus. And what's ironic to me, and this is just my prediction, and I could be way wrong, but again, that's what predictions are. They're just yours. I believe that we're probably going to see through the mass exodus of people and the effort to lower taxes and the things that people elected him on. I think in 2 years you're going to see the exact opposite happen because corporate. I'm not so much as worried about the populace leaving as I am the corporations that are already saying, "Hey, we're out of here. We're not doing business in
Well,
Mamdani City." And
well,
New York's a hub. It's a business mecca, and
you're not wrong, but here I'm just going to throw this out there. I think you're right. I think you're going to see a mass exodus of large corporations, but the people who work at those large corporations are probably going to make their way out as well. I mean,
yeah,
if the expectation is that you're in the office at 8 a.m., you know, and the office is moved, you're not going to stay living where you are,
right, right.
and
You know,
like I question a lot of I have a hard time believing that he genuinely thinks that they are going to have city-run grocery stores that everything is for free and transportation is going to be for free. You
there's
those
no
tax
way. It's not
the
possible.
well, and it's one of these things. It's like it sounds good. If I lived in New York and I was a person of modest means and those things were affecting me on a day-to-day basis, having somebody say that we're gonna relieve some of this burden for you,
Of course, it's a
it
good
sounds
idea,
good.
right?
It
In
sounds
theory, the
good.
idea is great, but you got to think about the practicality behind everything. And so, for me, I hear free grocery store, but I'm thinking,
Hmm.
okay, you've got these boroughs and you've got these blocks rather than say free grocery store, why not provide access to better food, like higher quality, and create gardens across the city? Like find spaces to like community co-ops. I know they have
Hmm.
some, but maybe put our efforts in that because the other thing is too, is if you look, New York as a whole has one of the highest obesity rates in the country, but more people are on SNAP assistance there than anything before. So, where's the access to better quality food? Where's the push to making sure that, people are eating what they're supposed to? Because it's one thing to provide government run grocery stores, but if you're filling them with General Mills cereal and Hostess cakes and everything else,
Yeah.
I mean, then you're just kind of creating a cycle of another problem because you got to fix the health problems that come from that. So, if he wants to provide food for people and quality food, have it be farm raised, have it be you know what I mean? But don't have it be a Walmart that's just giving away free food. That doesn't make sense to me. Like,
I
because you're just creating more
yeah.
problems.
I I see where you're saying. I see what you're saying. Um, I think it's a failing proposition in the first place. I don't think
Yeah,
it's going to be doable. Uh, you know, those places aren't going to run themselves. So you're going to have to pay people
yeah,
to operate them. And if you want to do something like they operate at you know, maybe it's not free, but they're, not for profit.
yeah.
We're not going to make any money. But the reality is, grocery stores don't make any money in the first place. The
No,
margins are really low. It's a volume business.
right.
So there's not really a bunch of money to be made, anyways.
That's why
So,
there's a Dollar General in the middle of the country everywhere, or Family Dollar
mhm,
is because there's not, it doesn't sustain a grocery store. So you know what I mean?
no.
Like, the
Well, and you
margins
got
are
the
low,
one
like you
person
said.
working there, and like
Yeah,
it's yeah, the place is a mess because like 100% the margins aren't there, and people and they're financially losing propositions. So you have to have your overhead as low as you possibly can.
well, and let's be honest. In order, like New York, in theory, you could do some of the things that Mamdani is talking about, like lowering housing costs and doing some things like
Hmm.
that. I do believe you can do it, but you have to take a look in the mirror and understand that the side of the aisle that you're on is pushing forward the migrant crisis that's draining our system right now, the homelessness. They're providing
Hmm.
shelter and food and different things. I believe that unhoused people, as they call them now, instead of homeless people, I
Hmm.
believe that there is ways to create housing for those people. But I mean, that's where the focus comes is creating opportunity for those people and getting them in communities. But I mean, until we're truly paying for the people of New York, until they're paying for themselves and not the drain on the system, it's just going to be, there's no way to fix it, Sterl. It doesn't matter who governs, whether it's right, left, middle, it doesn't matter. The problem has gotten so big that every side's going to have to lose something to gain everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the reality is that the housing issues in New York is just a matter of supply and demand. You have a place where a lot of people want to live, so people are willing to pay a lot of money to live there. You
Yeah,
have you have a mixture of very low income and extremely high income. There's it's just like anywhere else. It's like California. It's like pick a city in California, Sacramento or San Francisco has working homeless, Los Angeles, but New York, yeah. I mean, of course you're going to have those issues in a place that is popular and people want to live. That's supply and demand. You can do something to stem
yeah.
the increase in costs to kind of help reduce those, but you've got to be incentivizing the folks who own these buildings to participate in that. You can't just go, well, I know you make a whole lot of money, but I'm going to take all that
I feel like
you
it's a
could
great time for
off.
me to say this. Um, I've never understood the allure of New York. One, I'm a Boston sports fan, so screw New York.
Yeah.
And two, which love people in New York, by the way, but just saying, like, forget New York as
Mm,
a Boston sports fan. But two, I've never understood if you were an unhoused person or a transient, why you would find New York as a place you want to go. Because it's cold, It's
Hmm.
not like if you don't have a place. I'm sorry, man. I'm kind of weak-minded that way. If I'm homeless, I'm going to LA. Like, I ain't
Well,
gonna lie.
so I will tell you, if you'd like, I can explain a little bit of this to you.
I know
So,
why they're there, but I'm just saying the allure for me has never
well, it's not so
been.
much the it's there's no, it's not necessarily an allure thing. You notice
That's what they
the states.
provide.
Well, yeah, 100%. It's the states with the who are the bluest. And listen, I get wanting to be kind and help people because at the end of the day, that's what a lot of this is people just want to help people. They also want to help people not in their backyard. Like a lot of these cities that are the bluest and have the highest homeless population and offer all of these extra services to these folks, it's because they're blue, you know, and a lot of states, especially red ones, will straight up ship homeless people. They'll
Yeah, I
100% do
mean,
it. It's
dude,
it,
it's a great,
why
it's a
it,
great thing, and personally, it's a great thing to be an altruist. Like always,
hmm
like having an altruistic view of the world is never a bad thing.
hmm
But the problem with altruism is that eventually, if you're too altruistic, you get taken advantage of. But you're so
yes.
hung up in being altruistic that you don't know how to not be taken advantage of.
Well, and
And that's
that's
where I think
how.
we've
Yeah.
gotten is the system is just snowballed into this massive,
hmm
like almost it's almost cyclical, right? Like everything just kind of just keeps, I don't
I Yeah, man. I got some strong opinions on some of the stuff.
know. Me
Uh,
too.
but it should be. There are. Listen, I can tell you from experience that there are folks who are homeless who that is the lifestyle that they choose. Don't don't let people tell you otherwise. Are there people who are homeless because they got a rough shake of things, got dealt a bad hand, and are trying to
Absolutely.
get themselves back on their feet? 100% there are. But there is a portion of that population that is the lifestyle that they have chosen, and that's the way they want to live. And so you have to ask the question, at what point do I go, okay, well, this is how you want to live. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna begrudge you of that, but I'm
Right.
also not gonna hand you a bunch of stuff just because you don't feel like being a participant in society.
Yeah. You don't want to be a productive member. That's not my problem, right? I also am of the belief that we could do more though too to
Yes.
to help homeless people. From the standpoint of this, there is perfect example, Loring Air Force Base in Limestone, Maine.
Hmm.
There are countless military bases that are no longer in use around this country that have not been, they're just empty lots.
Yep.
You know, to me, like homeless veterans especially, give them cities, give them their own places to go and a mission and something that helps them. Hey, you come here, you're a working member of this, you don't have to go out there. There's other people just like you. You're driving it there. But I just think that we have the space to put these people, but instead we allow them to be spread out. And honestly, if you're homeless, do you really care where you live at that point?
Yes.
Well, no, I mean,
Like I
I hear
say,
you.
I.
No, I hear you, but my point is if I were to come to you and you were on the streets of New York and I said, Sterling, I'm gonna help you. We're gonna provide you heat and shelter and food, and we're gonna get you where you need to go. But we're gonna move you to the Air Force Base in northern Maine. There are jobs there. We're gonna get you counseling. We're gonna help you with job aid and everything else. I just don't see enough. Like they're altruistic until they're not. Like there's altruism
Well,
until
and
it
that's
doesn't exist.
well, and that's if you look at cities like especially Portland, Oregon, Seattle, they'll do things. They say things out of one side of their mouth, but when you look at their actions, they're very different. As an example, they're I don't remember the specific town, and maybe at some point I'll try and find it, but it's actually a city. But and I believe in Oregon, they wanted to change so basically this whole area is zoned for single family homes. They've got an issue with rising costs of housing, and so the city said we want to zone we want to buy this little plot here, and we want to put a 60 apartment building for
Yes, I do remember seeing this. I forget which city it is, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
elderly people who are on a fixed income, and the city voted it down.
Yeah, yeah.
But like,
Well,
so
it's
like
the
I
same
say,
idea as
it's
defund the police, right? Like they all these inner cities, Seattle, Portland, they all
Mhm.
have had these defund the police measures. But guess who they call when shit hits the fan?
And
You know,
I
it's just it
but
doesn't make
again,
sense.
it's very much a NIMBY, not in my backyard situation. It's
Hmm.
like we want to help homeless people as long as we don't have to see them. I you know
Unless you're in San Francisco, then they're okay with them like defecating on the street and
Well, again, it's part of the problem is that it's so unmanageable because you have these places that have, because reality is every resource is limited. Cities
yeah.
have limited resources. We like to pretend sometimes that that's not the case, but it is. And, when you have these massive homeless populations, especially in places like San Francisco or Los Angeles, you only have so much funds to fix this
Well,
problem.
the system had limited resources before open borders. I mean, you think about that, and just the amount of people that have trickled over our border in the
Hmm.
in the last 5, 7 years as a whole. I mean, they're not coming over here and just getting jobs and living.
Well,
It's compounded the problem.
I will say this. I have mixed thoughts about that particular subject for the fact that as a man I understand trying to build a better life for yourself or your
Yes,
family. I get that.
100%.
We have a incredibly broken
Immigration system. Yeah,
immigration system to the point where if you are unskilled labor, good luck.
yeah.
You enter a lottery where about 2% of the people who apply get in. you know we we we've let these people stay here. This is the other part. There's illegal immigrants who have been here for 30 years. They came here when they were 6.
Yeah,
This is the only place they really know.
yeah.
And there's there's no path to there's no path to citizenship. And y- I get more pissed off um about H-1B visas than I do necessarily most illegals. Most people who are here illegally. The reality is that most of them are just living their life.
And I are going to show an example of our discourse a little bit once in a while. So I have a hard time because if I go out today and I
Hmm.
shoplift at a Walmart
Hmm.
and they catch me, I broke
Yep.
the law. I
Hmm.
get in trouble. There's a consequence. I'm
I hear you.
sorry, but the people, like at its core, if you come to our country illegally, you broke a law before you even got here.
I hear you. I do.
And so for me,
I
that's where I struggle. Like I understand asylum seekers. I understand, wanting to make a better life for yourself. And I understand that we need a better path forward for that. But the problem is we're trying to bring the world's problems into our country at this point. And the problem is a lot of people, like New York, going full circle here, going back to Mamdani. The reason why Mamdani, a admitted socialist,
hmm
was elected in New York is because people from socialist nations have immigrated and voted for him. And so part of the problem is they're running from these socialist policies for a better life, but they're bringing the policies with them, and you can see it from city to city across this country. I mean,
well,
look at Dearborn, Michigan right now. Dearborn,
yeah.
Michigan they elected somebody and they're upholding Sharia law. And a guy that went before the city council, there's a video circulating the internet right now. He went before the city council and said he doesn't agree with that. And they literally told him,
I'm
well, you
didn't
don't
that
believe
guy
in
look?
Muslims, you got to go.
Yeah. I've like I said, Sharia law is. With Jesus Christ, let's not open
No,
that
but I'm
can of
just
worms
saying, but
just
you know
yet.
what I mean? I'm just saying, like, people are bringing their, it's kind of like the same reason why Greg Abbott doesn't want people moving. He's talking about putting a fee to move from New York to Texas
Well,
because
and
if
and
you are
that I
looking, and I
agree.
am for it, I'm 100% for it, you
Well,
know?
here's the thing. That it's I don't think he's serious for one,
Mm-mm.
um, because at the end of the day, you know, these are your top earners in that place,
Right.
and Texas is what they're the second largest economy in, or yeah, second now, isn't it? I
Yeah,
think they're
but you
ahead of New York.
look at Texas, right? 10 years ago, they were red, or 15 years ago, they were predominantly red. They were about 60 or 65-35, I think is the graphic that I saw
Hmm.
recently. Silicon Valley started having issues with California all of a sudden, so Austin became this technocrat hub,
Hmm.
and people started immigrating to Austin. Well, guess what? Texas is now pretty much like 52-48 either way on a
Well,
given day,
well,
which is the
here's,
craziest thing.
but you have to. I think I think you're looking at this maybe a little differently than I would. I don't look at I I don't look at uh cities the same way that you do. So I know that major population centers tend to be more blue. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
what state you look at.
yeah.
They tend to be more blue. Um,
But people
you
flock to those major centers when there moving because it's cheaper a lot of times
well,
to live in the inner city, or there's help, or there's
uh, right, and then on top of that, it's especially if you come from a major population center, and for whatever reason, whether it be taxes or yeah, a more mobile job market. You go to these one of the you tend to go to a place that's more familiar to you. So if you are from a major city, you probably won't end up moving to a major city.
well, like
I
John. You met John, my neighbor John.
Yeah.
He moved from the New York metro area in retirement. They retired here. Yeah, he has a daughter that went to a school down in the Mid Atlantic, but the part of the problem is for example, yesterday I was talking to him about his upstate New Jersey experience. We got our personal property tax bill in um, for our vehicles, and I was talking to him about it, and his was only like $1,100, and his wife was complaining about it. And he goes, "Yeah, honey, but we're not paying $24,000 a year in personal property taxes anymore."
Mhm.
And so, think about that from that perspective. You have people that work their whole lives in these metro areas, and then in retirement they can't afford to live there anymore, so they leave. I mean, it's
Well,
kind of it's
I
kind of sad, really. Like all they've ever known, and they're being forced out because of the way that taxes have increased, because of the things that the
mhm.
blue cities are doing.
Well, and again, that's one of the things that points that I've been trying to make is that you know money has to come from somewhere, and resources are
Yeah,
not unlimited. So you
right.
have to you have to triage what's important. you know what is the most important thing? The whole role of government, I think people forget this, is to make life as good as it can for the most amount of people.
Right.
It's not the people who scream the loudest, but the people who the majority of individuals.
Well, like with this government shutdown, perfect example,
Hmm.
right, of this whole thing. You know, I have an issue. So I get that people are going hungry, but when I hear people talking about being on SNAP assistance for 30 years,
Hmm.
I can't help but think that
Questions.
maybe this shutdown is ruling out some rampant fraud that might be going on in that
I
system,
don't know. I don't know if as though I would call it fraud. I would
or just
call
taking
it,
advantage of it.
well, yeah. It's one of those things that there are some people who are going to hustle to make a better life for themselves, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah,
There are some people who, let's be honest, get a head start the minute they're born. There are. And there are some people who are stuck in the back, but they're going to be successful regardless. And then there are some people who are going to do as little
just
as
do
they
nothing.
possibly can.
Yeah,
And y- you know, again, this is when you look at SNAP users and users of housing vouchers, it's mostly single mothers and children.
yeah.
Uh,
Which goes
eh,
full circle to the whole existence of this is the father
yeah,
in the house,
the
So
father in the household. There. If you are adult enough to get a woman pregnant, you are adult enough to handle your responsibilities.
yeah,
But again, as we've lifted women up, and I think that's a fantastic thing. Uh, we and empowered them. I think we've decreased perceived importance of having a man in a household. You know, when you have children in a household that's with the father as the primary caregiver. So single dad,
Yeah.
kid lives with them. There is no statistical difference uh, between that and a two-parent household when you look at
Yeah.
suicide rates, drug rates of drug use, rates of incarceration, high school graduation. But you put just a mom in a household, and especially for boys, especially if the kid is male, all of those things go up. And
It's nurture
again,
versus discipline, if that
well, I
makes
was just gonna
sense.
say, you know, there is, you know, if dad is if dad is a real dad, if dad is in the picture, if dad is there, there is a certain expectation, or at least there should be. You know, you know, mom is the place for comfort, and I am
Yep.
totally all about that. And you know, I still love and hug my kid. You know,
Yeah.
but but with me, there are expectations, and there are consequences, and there are rules that will be followed,
I'll give you a
and
perfect example of
that
the
is the real
difference in
world.
these
That's how.
rules.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So the other day, okay,
Hmm.
you know, I got this puppy.
Yep.
My daughter wanted a puppy. Just quick backstory: wanted a puppy. We already have a dog. We had talked about it. Well, she pulled the Jedi mind trick. She asked for this particular one that she knew, and I said yes because she wrapped around she's got me wrapped around her finger, you know.
Hmm.
But my wife was off, and my daughter were off school for election day, and so my wife decided to give our daughter a break from taking care of her puppy because the agreement was that, and my daughter's 12, by the way, was that if we get a puppy, she's going to have to help a lot, you know, kind of take it out, be there with it. And, you know, the other day I told my wife, I said, every 30 minutes, she needs to take Max out, the puppy. And my wife said, no, I'm going to give her a break. She does a lot. You're being kind of hard on her. And we kind of had a little, I don't want to say argument, but a disagreement, about
Hmm.
the approach there. And then fast forward to the evening time, my wife needs 30 minutes to take a shower. My daughter is responsible for the dog, and my wife comes out, and there's pee from one end of the house to the other. Um,
Hmm.
and so it just, if it were up to me, it would have been every 30 minutes all day long. Well, then my wife
Hmm.
realized it and talked about it, but it just goes to show that we're kind of the heavy hand
Yes.
behind it all at times,
Yep.
and it's even like right down to like I remember as a kid, you wait till your father gets home,
Hmm.
I mean, what does a single mom say? Like honestly, like I'm curious, and single moms, more power to you. I was
And,
raised by one, I was raised by one. I love my mom dearly. She taught me a lot of things, but I had to grow up quickly and be the man of my house at a young age. And so when I hear things like kids aren't doing chores, or kids aren't even loading the dishwasher, or kids aren't putting
hmm,
their clothes away, or they're not clean, it just makes me worried, man, because as much as I hated those things when I was a kid,
they're
they're just
important.
things that I do now,
Hmm.
and so it just, I feel like there's a little bit of I think the mom is more of goes off of those feelings
Hmm.
and those emotions, and I feel like the father goes more off of kind of the discipline and what it takes to be like. It's like I always say to you, man, there comes a point where you're going to switch from raising your daughter, you're going to switch from raising a kid to
Hmm.
raising an adult.
Belt. Yep.
And, you know, everybody's switch is different, every time is different, but I mean, you cannot be you get 18 years to instill in a kid, and really you get about 12 in the grand
Hmm.
scheme of things. And so for me, it's you better make sure that they know how to be loving and firm and kind, assertive about who they are, confident, hardworking, just simple things. Like there's a reason why one of the most important things the military makes you do is learn how to make a bed.
Hmm.
And so there's just things that I feel like it's great to know how they feel. It's great to be involved in those conversations and to love them firmly. But I also feel like, it's a father's job to kind of know when to separate that love and nurture from discipline and responsibility.
Well, and especially in it's different than I feel like it used to be,
Yeah,
especially with again with you know I don't like using the term feminism because I think that's been co-opted for other
yeah, yeah,
things, but the empowerment of women, like part of your responsibility now as a father is it's not, well, be pretty and cute and kind and submissive and you know learn to cook and clean. It's I have to you have to kind of do some of that stuff, but on top of that I kind of have to teach you how to exist in the world that you're going to be working in
yeah,
so
yeah,
that you can be a successful individual. And that's that's a completely different role. Admittedly, I'm hard on my daughter.
yeah.
I
Oh,
have
I am too.
I have expectations, and she needs to meet them. And
And
sometimes,
I probably would be what you consider mean. And my daughter, she's a preteen. She's
hmm
going through things that, women go through in their life. And one of the biggest things that I always tell her is it's not an excuse for anything. You can't talk to a
exactly.
boss that way. You can't talk to,
hmm
like, unfortunately, I get it. Like, you don't feel well. There's different things going on, but you have to be accountable for how you handle yourself because no boss is going to let you get away with it. And so I look at everything through the lens of how are you going to integrate into society? How are you going to be productive? What are the things that you're going to do? And wherever you do them, you need to be responsible. You need to show up on time. You need to be
hmm
effective in the time that you're there. And and I feel like our households are that way too. You know what I mean? Like there's countless times I've been on the phone with you, man, where it's, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to bed after dinner. You're not going to do other things. And you know what? It's
hmm
it's not an empty threat. It's realistic, and not to make it that you're threatening your child, but it's a it's an
No.
it's accountability. The world has lost accountability for their actions. It's the same reason why people freak out when, someone goes to jail for doing something so blatantly horrible. Some people are like, oh my God, they should be out. Well, why? Because they shouldn't be accountable for what they did. I'm sorry, you did something. Every action has a consequence, whether that's a good
hmm
consequence or a bad one. And it just, to me, the world has gotten complicated when really it just needs to be back to basics a little bit.
hmm Well, we've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I got another hour in me. That's the problem.
That's
I'm the king of my driveway, mowing lines so straight. Got a toolbox full of glory, and a mortgage by the plate.